presentation of Learfield IMG College. From the Georgia Southern Sports Network, powered by Learfield IMG College.
Wings up, Eagle Nation! Touchdown, Georgia Southern!
This is Inside Eagle Nation, your all-access look into Eagle athletics.
Taking a look through all the other action in Georgia Southern athletics this past week. A lot of road action. A lot of teams hitting the old I-16 out of town.
Getting on the steel horse and taking us to parts north, south, west, wherever. Can't really go too much farther east.
Now let's return to the Learfield IMG College studios. Here are your hosts, Colin Lacy and Danny Reed.
That's a fact, Jack.
Welcome into another edition of Inside Eagle Nation, your official podcast for Georgia Southern Athletics, episode number 169, and one of the most jam-packed episodes I think we're going to have to get to this year.
Yeah.
It's right about that time where baseball's getting started, men's and women's basketball still going, softball has started their season, a lot going on around campus this past weekend. You had, I think, softball, rifle, tennis, basketball all going on virtually at the same time on campus on Saturday, but a lot to get to. Colin Lacy alongside the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed. A busy but exciting time.
It's funny that you said virtually everything was going on. A year ago, we would have literally been doing it virtually.
No. Not where I was going.
Or 2 years ago, whatever.
Yeah, but it's all the same. It all kind of blends together at this point.
That doesn't include spring football. That doesn't start for another month, but I think we're going to cover 8 different sports. You also had the Armstrong Hall of Champions getting unveiled last Friday. Chad Jackson did such a great job on that project. We had him on recently just to preview that and the ribbon cutting, and from all accounts, it was extremely well done. Whitfield Signs did an outstanding job with setting that up. You've also got cocktails and kicks coming up this weekend. You mentioned with baseball going up to Tennessee to start the season. Softball's off to a good start. So if it's listed on gseagles.com, it's likely that we're going to cover it.
Yeah, talking about the ribbon cutting for the Armstrong Hall of Champions down in Savannah, that taking place this past Friday. And Chad, I was talking to him on Saturday before the women's basketball game. He was blown away at the turnout that they had. He said probably 200 to 300 different student athletes returning to take place in the Hall of Champions ribbon cutting down at Armstrong. And he said it's not just the recent ones. You had the softball and baseball players from the last few years that Armstrong was down in Savannah, but had basketball players from the 70s and the heyday of Armstrong basketball when they would pack the Convocation Center downtown.
That's too cool.
So a lot of different people in attendance down in Savannah, and a really cool event to get to. As we go throughout this week's edition of Inside Eagle Nation, make sure if you want to join the conversation on anything we talk about,
because there's going to be a lot.
There's going to be a lot. If there's something that you don't like in this episode, then we're sorry. I will write you a handwritten apology.
We're going to wear a lot of different hats over the next hour or so.
But you can join the conversation by commenting here on Facebook Live. You can text us at 912-274-3607. Think about that one a minute. Or you can tweet at GS Sports Network. But we dive into, first and foremost, Georgia Southern men's golf wrapping up their second tournament of the season yesterday as they take 4th out of 15 at the Gator Invitational, the highest ranking that Georgia Southern has had since they won it in the 79-80 season. Down in Gainesville Saturday and Sunday, Ben Carr shot a 66, Brantley Baker also shooting a 67 to pace Georgia Southern to the lowest team score in the third round, just one stroke behind South Florida, who took third in the tournament. And again, Georgia Southern taking 4th out of 15 teams down in the Gator Invitational.
When Mark Janak and I were following this on day one, he's the contact for men's golf, and they played 36 holes in the first day. I noticed Mason Williams' score specifically. He shot a 73. I thought, that's pretty solid, and just a little bit over par. He had a 10 on one hole. So he was a 63 on the other 17 holes.
Wow.
So if that is even...
I'm going to guess that hole had water.
Had something. But if that was just even you could say maybe even a bogey, Georgia Southern could have bumped up at least 2 positions. But the fact that he shot a 73 speaks to his mental focus and all the time that they have put in. We talked about him from the week before winning the Sharkey.
Yeah.
He hadn't played competitively in so long coming off of the wrist injury. And then with gut check time with Ben shooting a 66 on Sunday. I mean, That's exactly what you expect from him.
No doubt. They'll have a few weeks off before heading to Bluffton, South Carolina for the Colleton River Collegiate March 7th and 8th. Women's golf will open up their spring portion of the season at the Lake Oconee Invitational Friday through Sunday up in Edenton. So Mimi Burke getting her Georgia Southern debut out on the links at the Lake Oconee Invitational hosted by Mercer up in Middle Georgia. Georgia Southern Rifle had a pretty big weekend, had 3 different events, 3 different matches, I should say, 2 different days. Saturday, they defeated Wofford and then defeated Wofford and number 17th North Georgia on Sunday. The one on Saturday in Statesboro, then headed up to Dahlonega for Sunday, but set records 2 straight days, set the team air rifle score on Saturday against Wofford, and then set the team aggregate school record on Sunday against North Georgia and Wofford. Amy Visconti took gold with the 3rd highest score on Sunday in program history.
I spent some time talking with Coach Warman before the workshop we had over at the FOC last Wednesday. She was one of the coaches that was in attendance. We heard 4 different head coaches from the chair about when they knew they were going to be head coaches, managing a staff, and just sharing things that those in attendance could apply if they wanted to be coaches, but also whatever walk of life that they were going to go into. And she was just beaming, talking about her team. You can tell just how much love there is from coach to player, player to coach. She has done such a good job with that program.
Fantastic person. You could know nothing about rifle or what the sport is about, and you'll have a fantastic time having a conversation with her.
And those are the kind of people that you want in this department. These are the kind of people you want in Statesboro, the kind of people you want involved with Georgia Southern.
No doubt. Rifle will look ahead to Saturday the 19th, 8 a.m., the first shot against UAB, and that will be the NCAA qualifier over at the Shooting Sports Education Center across campus. Georgia Southern men's tennis, a good weekend as they swept the weekend. Got the victory over College of Charleston on Thursday, 5-2 over at the Wallace Tennis Center. Then headed up to Conway, South Carolina on Saturday. It was supposed to start off the Sun Belt Conference slate on Sunday. They were going to be taking on UNCG on Saturday. Did that against the Spartans and got the victory 6-1 over UNCG. The match against Coastal Carolina on Sunday, because of weather in the Conway area, had to be postponed, so that one will come up a little bit later on in the next couple of weeks when it gets rescheduled. But right now, the next matches for men's tennis, they will look ahead to a Florida trip, head down to DeLand on Saturday for a 1 o'clock first serve against Stetson, and then make their trip way back up to Jacksonville, Florida to take on North Florida starting at 1 o'clock on Sunday.
See, that's the way to do it. You start far away,
yeah,
and then you hit Jacksonville on the way back.
Exactly. Track and field was at the Bulldog Open hosted by Sanford. Scovia Ikoru broke the school indoor record and took 3rd in the 200-meter dash, then tied her own school record. That's the thing that I love, when you can tie or break your own record, because I've never done it. When you tie or break your own record, that's when you know you're doing something good.
Well, you broke the record. Oh, whose record did I break?
Yours.
That was a couple years ago. It was Mayor of Negwandala. Every time that we had a podcast, it was this event, that event. It was the same idea.
But she tied her own school record while pacing 6th in the 400 as Georgia Southern posts 5 top 10 finishes over in Birmingham, and they get set for the Sun Belt Conference tournament coming up in a couple of weeks. That was also going to be in Birmingham. So get on the track that you're going to be at when you get to Sun Belt tournament time.
It doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
No, not at all. Georgia Southern women's tennis, a clean sweep on the weekend. On Wednesday, got the 4-3 victory over College of Charleston, then took on Charleston Southern on Saturday with a 5-2 victory, and then South Carolina State, a clean sweep 7-0 on Sunday against the Bulldogs. All of that at the Wallace Tennis Center. So the Wallace Tennis Center has been a busy spot this week.
Well, they started 0-2, but it was against 2 ranked opponents with Clemson and with UCF. You take your lumps early. You undoubtedly learn something from those. And to go 3-0 in 1 week, they're right back on track.
They will get back to the tough portion of their schedule with ranked opponents. Number 38, FIU, as they will be down in Jacksonville on Saturday and Sunday. Face off against FIU, who's number 38 in the country, on Saturday. Then Sunday, number 49, North Florida, awaits with a 10 a.m. first serve. Georgia Southern softball getting things going this past weekend in the Bash in the Borough tournament. Had Binghamton, Radford, and East Tennessee State. Had a 7-4 victory to open up the 2022 campaign. 7-4 the victory over Binghamton on Friday. And that was a game that Georgia Southern was down, but scored 6 runs in the 5th inning, courtesy of a grand slam from Faith Shirley. It's exactly what you knew you were going to get. This is a softball team that they're fun to watch. Running the bases a lot. You got a lot of steals, and stealing isn't something that's heavily leaned on in softball ranks in the collegiate level, but Sharon Perkins likes to run now.
You got to pick your spots a little bit more carefully, but the way that you do that in the first place, you got to get people on base. We've talked about with Georgia Southern baseball for years the importance of getting the leadoff runner on. When the Eagles do that, about 40% of the time, more often, they're going to score. For softball, we know that they've gone through a couple of rough years, but it's undoubtedly going to get better by simply crowding those bases, and even more so when you can do it to start an inning.
So Sharon Perkins picks up her first victory as a Georgia Southern head softball coach, 7-4 over Binghamton on Friday. She also showed off some moves on Friday night on opening night.
I think I saw that.
I think you know where I'm getting at. She's in the third base coach's box. There's a play at third base. Ball tips off the third baseman's glove and runs over towards the coach's box. She wasn't really in a whole lot of peril, we'll call it, but she hit the deck, goes face first, flat on the ground, almost like a tornado drill or something. The ball rolls away, and there was nobody laughing harder in the stands than Jared Benko.
That lines up.
Because they have their long-time connection. He was her SID at Georgia when she was over with the Bulldogs. And so,
the storybook part of that first game, if you're Faith Shirley and you just got named preseason All-Sun Belt, the only Eagle to be named preseason All-Sun Belt, and you had a go-ahead grand slam on opening day, how cool is that?
Oh,
how
fantastic.
Cool. I mean, she had 9 home runs last year, but how cool is that to be able to do that and get Coach Perkins her first victory as an Eagle?
So you start off the Bash in the Borough with a 7-4 victory over Binghamton. Move on to Saturday afternoon, fall to Binghamton, 5-1 on Saturday afternoon. Then on Saturday, a little bit later on, a 6-0 whitewashing of Radford. East Tennessee comes calling on Sunday, another whitewashing, 4-0 against the Bucks. And then Radford gets the best of Georgia Southern to round out the Bash in the Borough on Sunday afternoon, 7-1. But 3-2 the start for head coach Sharon Perkins and Georgia Southern softball. This is a fun team to watch. Got to get out there Friday and then a little bit on Sunday as well against East Tennessee. This is a team that is a lot of fun to watch. Really good defensively. Had a couple of really good plays on Friday on the infield. But they have another tournament coming up this weekend with the GATA Challenge. North Dakota State, UT Martin, and Maine coming down. And I can't imagine that there's good weather in any of the three of those. So that's why they're coming down. But North Dakota State on Friday, 3 o'clock the first pitch, and then a 5:30 first pitch against UT Martin on Friday. Saturday, you'll have UT Martin at 12:30, Maine at 3, and then Sunday, 9 a.m. the first pitch against North Dakota State, and Maine will come on at 11:30 for Georgia Southern softball.
Jess Mazer was very good last weekend offensively and pitching-wise. Belogorska, I believe, came close to a shutout, but Kaylee Richardson did have a shutout, and also with Riley Waldrop pitching in the opener. So you're finding some depth in the circle, and it's a matter of mixing and matching. And look, for a first-year team, there's always going to be that sense of unknown. Now, Coach Perkins has won more than her fair share of games. We know how good she was, Georgia Tech. We know that she has a pedigree. But when you've got that first year with a lot of youth from the year before, a lot of freshmen, now sophomores, Shirley is your linchpin at first base. To get off to a 3-2 start with 2 of those being shutouts, I think I'll take that.
No doubt. Move on to the hardwood. Georgia Southern women's basketball, a really good weekend inside Hanner Fieldhouse, an 82-80 victory over Appalachian State.
I'll give you a golf clap on
that. Thank you. That was on Thursday with the overtime victory. It was 90s night and Student Appreciation Day. And then on Saturday, a 90-75 dominant victory over Coastal Carolina Saturday afternoon on Senior Day and packed the house in pink. But Appalachian State, it's a game that Georgia Southern led for the most part by about 5 for the entirety of the second half. Appalachian State made a little bit of a run to tie it up at the end of regulation. In overtime, Alexia Alesh was somebody who we talked about last week, a new person for the App State Mountaineers squad. She has 21 points. 3 of her 4 threes that she made happened on consecutive possessions in overtime. And so she was really what kept them in the game. And App State, somebody need to tell them that it's legal to take twos. They took 45 threes on Thursday.
I was thinking, how many overtimes was it? Just the one. Just one. That's a lot of threes.
They took 45 threes of the 75 shots they took.
Yeah, you don't see that too often.
No.
Not with necessarily just number of threes, but the fact that that's more than 60%, or right around 60% of your total field goal attempts. That's insanely high.
So luckily, Georgia Southern held them to just 28% from three-point land. So they only made 13. Georgia Southern made 9 of them and took, about 15, 20 less.
Taryn Ward?
Taryn Ward had 32 points, 9 rebounds. She was 1 rebound shy of her 5th consecutive double-double that hadn't been done since the 02-03 season. So a really nice job, and Taryn Ward is going to, if she's not the Sun Belt Conference Player of the Week, and you and I were talking about this beforehand, if she's not Sun Belt Conference Player of the Week, get rid of the award.
You could just do
award. Sorry, go ahead.
He's really learning. You could do just the numbers, but the fact that she had the steal that resulted in the game-winning bucket, Simone James's putback with 4 seconds left, sealed the deal. And for that final possession, it's App State basketball thinking, okay, we get this ball in bounds, we're going to win this game.
Yeah.
But for Taryn Ward, who's usually known for putting the ball in the bucket, to be in that spot and then to lead that break because they knew they had to get down court quickly, but also for Simone James to back that up and still be there to assist, gets the weekend off to the start that she needed it to.
And it was really big for Simone. We talked to her after the game because at the end of regulation, Georgia Southern had the ball with about 5 or 6 seconds remaining. Simone drives baseline, gets cut off by a Mountaineer, and the shot clock or the game clock ends with Georgia Southern having possession of the ball. You thought all you needed was a shot to go in for Georgia Southern. You win in regulation. It goes to overtime, and it was just so poetic that Simone is the one that gets the putback to put Georgia Southern ahead 82-80. And then did a really good job on the defensive end of the floor for Georgia Southern because App State got it back with about 7 seconds to play in overtime. And you're thinking, okay, App State gets another shot to try to tie this one or take the lead. Kick it out. Tried to get initially a drive for Appalachian State, but a good cutoff by Rachel Johnson, who did a really good job on the defensive side. She has become one of the top defenders for Georgia Southern. But cut off the drive to the lane. They kicked it out to Porter, who hawked up a 3, and it was off, and then it was time to celebrate.
And then Saturday, also a lot of defense, especially early in that game.
Yeah. So we got to roll this one all the way back. Because
I saw the stat broadcast, and I saw 23-3 in the first quarter against Coastal, and I'm wondering, okay, there's a story here.
So Coastal Carolina comes out. Blair Schultz hits a 3, coincidentally the only one she made on the day. She makes a 3 with 9:27 to play in the first quarter.
Okay.
So you're thinking, okay, 3-0, not the start you wanted, but hey, we can do this. Georgia Southern scores the next 24 points.
That'll do.
Ended up being 23-3 after the first quarter. Georgia Southern gets a free throw to start the second quarter, and 24 straight points. Pretty impressive. But the most impressive part, Coastal Carolina doesn't score again until 9:17 in the second quarter. So you went an entire quarter of holding Coastal Carolina off the scoreboard.
It's one thing to do it against Carver.
Yeah, right.
It's another thing to do it against a conference team.
Right. It was pretty impressive. And it was the Georgia Southern defense. It wasn't Coastal turned the ball over, had 8 turnovers in the first quarter, but it wasn't unforced turnovers. It was Georgia Southern doing their job, being in the right spot, and Coach Howard being a defensive coach. We talk about it with her all the time after the game, that was the most dominant defensive performance she's seen from Georgia Southern.
You know, sometimes there is a concern when you have to force a team to defend for a 30-second shot clock or whatever it ends up being relative to how long it takes a team to get it into the front court. but there also has to be a certain sense of discipline for an offense to be able to run a set for 30 seconds and not turn it over.
Yeah.
Not put yourself in a bad spot, not put the ball in a difficult situation. For teams that want to shoot quickly, it doesn't matter as much, but then you can get overextended and turn the ball over in that way. But for teams that are slower tempo and want to take between 20 and 25 seconds, it takes a really good knowledge of the offense. It takes a really good sense of who else is on the floor, so you don't give it away because you're simply trying to slow the game down and not give it away.
So Georgia Southern, it started to, and it was a 20-point game pretty much the entirety of that ball game.
Yeah.
And so got a little bit dicey in the fourth quarter where Georgia Southern letting Coastal Carolina get on the scoreboard a little bit more than you would like. But even with that, it only got as close as 10. Georgia Southern extended it back out to 15, but Coastal trying to get a little bit of a shot in the arm after Janine Camp was ejected from the game. That was a whole scene. She picked up her 5th foul and then turned and threw the basketball at the ref.
Oh.
As you can imagine, that didn't go over so well.
So she was already gone, and then she was really gone.
Right. So she was already disqualified.
Okay.
Technical foul, ejected. She threw a chair. It was pretty interesting.
It's not even baseball season yet.
No. I was looking around for Bobby Knight. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
Come on. Rare form. It's
Baseball season. It's got to be. Georgia Southern will look ahead the last 4 games on the road for Georgia Southern women's basketball as they take on South Alabama on Thursday, 8 o'clock the tip-off from the Mitchell Center. And then on Saturday, head to Troy, Alabama for a 5 o'clock tip-off against the Trojans of Troy. And then wrap up the regular season in 2 weeks now in the Louisiana schools, ULM Thursday in Louisiana on Saturday.
6-4 now in conference play, and if Anita Howard's team is going to be a top half team, they're going to earn it. They're going to have to earn it on the road with 4 straight to end the season. That's very odd scheduling to finish with 4 straight on the road. Granted, the Eagle men are going to finish with 3 straight at home, but to have back-to-back road weekends leading into conference tournament play, which is more travel to Pensacola, team's going to find out a lot more about themselves.
No doubt. And the way this schedule has worked out for Georgia Southern women's basketball, I was thinking about it this weekend. Women's basketball has only played 2 road conference games.
Because of COVID.
You had the Appalachian State game on the road, canceled because of COVID.
Yeah.
The Little Rock game that was supposed to be that split weekend to open the Sun Belt slate, that one was canceled. So we've only played on the road at Coastal Carolina and at Georgia State. That's it.
Jeez.
It sounds crazy when you have 2 weeks left in the regular season. You have 2 road conference games.
There should be an outside chance that the Eagles could earn a bye.
There's an outside chance there's going to have to be a lot of things go the Eagles' way, especially after the results on Saturday. A couple of quote-unquote upsets, but it's going to have to get a little bit of help to be able to get into one of those top 4, but it's still very possible.
And especially considering that one of the 2 this weekend is against a Troy team that Georgia Southern is trying to chase down, and what was a really good game at Hanner Fieldhouse in the first matchup, that puts a little bit more weight on that weekend.
Yeah, and I think the schedule kind of lines up for it for Georgia Southern because you've got 2 teams that you're chasing in Louisiana and Troy, 2 really good teams, and then you've got ULM and South Alabama who have struggled. ULM still trying to find their first win in Sun Belt Conference play, 0-11 now. So you've got 2 teams that you should be able to handle, and then 2 teams, if you're able to handle, really help you jump into one of those top 4. But we will see how that plays out over the next 2 weeks. But Georgia Southern men's basketball, it was a tough trip to the Carolinas. Thursday fell to Appalachian State 65-61 on Thursday, and then moved on to Conway on Saturday. Fell 79-58 to the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Appalachian State, you had 4 Eagles in double figures, but Andre Savrasov led the way with 13, and then 3 others with 10, and Kamari Brown to go along with Elijah McCadden, Cam Bryant. Elijah McCadden picks up his 1,000th point this weekend as well. And so, first, start with Appalachian State. It was one that, especially the second half, looked pretty even.
Yeah.
Just a matter of trying to get over that hump.
It was mostly a 2-possession game for much of it. Now, App did extend to 13 with about 6 minutes left. But if Georgia Southern could have found a way to simply make one or two more shots here and there, they would have won this game. And App was in first place at the time. And they ended up losing on Saturday to Georgia State, and I know we're going to get to them in just a little bit. Eagles missed 14 out of 16 shots over a 13-minute stretch in the second half. Now, they closed well, but it had gotten 13 points before they started the rush, and it seems that that's happened quite a few times in conference play where it's been a double-digit lead. Georgia Southern has done everything it could. In fact, it happened against App the first time.
Yeah.
Had to rally twice from down double digits against the Mountaineers in that first meeting. And it wasn't a great shooting day for Adrian Delph, one of the league's top scorers. He ends up going for 19, but he needed 20 shots to get it. But what really hurt the Eagles, App had 14 offensive rebounds. They scored 9 points, second chance. 3 of those were threes, and those were just killers. Because Georgia Southern did exactly what they needed to do on defense. They still held App under 35%, and there's a stat I'm going to give you right after I finish this thought.
Ooh.
So they did what they needed to do, but 3 times made threes on second chances, and those were 3 of the loudest that the home center got the entire afternoon. But holding App under 35%, Georgia Southern was 18-1 against Sunbelt teams, holding them under 35.
Wow.
So that was only the second time they've lost since joining the league when being that good on defense.
Wow.
They couldn't make enough shots.
Did you see our friend in App?
We don't have that many friends in Boone.
No, but there's always one that comes courtside.
No, I did not.
Oh,
I saw David Jackson, though.
Oh, old DJ.
He was wearing his KN95 mask. He took it off long enough to show me that he still had his beard.
I was about to say, was it a mask or was it just him flipping the beard up?
No, but they had an event for the chamber, and we were wondering what the attendance was going to be, and we both decided that it was going to be the old dollar bill trick.
What, you take the last 3 numbers off the dollar bill?
Yeah. You if it's going to be 4 digits, you take the one. It's either going to be 1, 2, or whatever.
Right.
And then the last 3 serial number, that's what your attendance is going to be. But it can't ever end in a 5 or 0 because that way people know you're making it up.
Fell to Appalachian State 65-61 on Thursday, then made the trek down to the HTC Center in Conway, South Carolina. Fell 79-58 to the Chanticleers. And this is one that Coastal got out in the first half, led by 11 at half, and then it was pretty much all she wrote.
Couldn't stop Vince Cole. And he's the top 3-point shooter in the league. He had 20 out of their 26 points. 8.5 minutes gone. Georgia Southern at that time had 10. Brian Berg had to call 2 timeouts, still with 11:30 left in the first half. And as much as the Eagles struggled offensively on Thursday, it was more so on Saturday. I mean, Andre Savrasov went over 6. Cam Bryant went 0 for 7. You mentioned about Elijah getting his 1,000th point on a free throw late in the first half. He was a bright spot. He scored 14. Prince Toyami was a bright spot as well. He goes his second career double-double with 10 and 10. He had 4 offensive rebounds, and there was about 6 minutes left when he missed a putback, and there were 2 Coastal guys about ready to take the rebound and get out and run. Prince dove on the floor for the basketball, knocked it off of Coastal, and it went out of bounds. And I remember thinking at the time, look, the Eagles are down by way too many points, but the effort that he showed there, you'll never remember that play 5-10 years down the line, but he just kept playing. And it was not going to go Georgia Southern's way. It's one of those, you have 1 or 2 of those games per year. Sometimes you do it to other people. Sometimes it happens to you. But if the Eagles happen to get it back on track and they're able to make a run, those are the kinds of plays that if you make them in games that are already decided, then when you make them in games that they need to matter, they mean that much more.
Eagles will put the Coastal and the Carolina trips to bed after the 65-61 loss at the hands of Appalachian State Thursday, 79-58 against Coastal on Saturday. Look ahead to 2 games this week against the same opponent. It is Southern Not State Week.
Finally, our turn.
Yeah, I've done it twice already. Thursday, up on the 3rd floor of the Georgia State Sports Arena, supposedly for the last time.
Yeah.
And that would be a 7 o'clock tip-off against Georgia State up in Atlanta, and then inside Hanner Fieldhouse on Saturday, 3 o'clock the tip-off inside Hanner in Statesboro against the Georgia State Panthers. And it's a Panthers team, we talked about it a couple of times earlier on in conference play, that it's a team for being a preseason favorite in the league. We're not playing like it like any stretch of the imagination and had to deal with different COVID outbreaks and whatever you want to say up in Atlanta. But 11-10, the record, 5-5 in conference play. They have gotten up to around 6th in the Sun Belt standings, but have been playing really, really well as of late. And it seems like and tell me if I'm wrong because you've watched a lot more film and dove into this a lot more than I have. It seems like at the beginning of the year and even the beginning of conference play, they were trying to go about 8, 9, 10, 11 deep. Once they've condensed it down to a max of 8 deep is when they really started to click.
And they've got those 8 guys that are playing. They're figuring it out on defense. I mean, for years under Ron Hunter, it was about how that 2-3 zone wasn't going to let anybody do anything. They're more man-to-man now. They're going to sprinkle in some zone here and there. This team also presses more. They're forcing 17 turnovers per game. They're 6th in the country in turnover margin, which means they don't give it to you, but they're going to take it from you. 3 weeks ago, they were 6-9 and 0-4. That was their worst conference start in almost 30 years. So everybody thought, well, they're not living up to their preseason accolades. But Eliel Soseme had missed the first 11 games because of off-season knee surgery. They're still not shooting it that well, but they are locking teams up the last few weeks. 2 games over the weekend, they sweep the trip. They won at Coastal 61-50, then they go to first place App, and they win 56-49. So they gave up 99 points in 2 games.
Jeez.
Which is almost unheard of in today's college basketball. They are figuring out how they need to defend. They're not scoring very much, but harken back to when the Eagles had their 3-game winning streak, there were things they weren't doing, but they were overcoming. When they swept Louisiana, which incidentally, this is how Georgia State got going, they swept the same trip, and then when they beat South Alabama, there were some things that were bothersome, but they were overcoming. The last 3 losses, it's either been turnovers, giving up offensive rebounds, or simply not being able to keep what was a really good stretch of defensive basketball. Coastal was 54% on Saturday. Previous 5 games, Eagles were giving up 36% combined. So it was bound to go the other direction. In the case of Georgia State, they were maybe the worst defensive team in the Sun Belt the first 2 months of the season.
Yeah.
Giving up almost 40% from 3, very atypical of a Georgia State team. They've always been fast tempo. They've always been quick trigger with their threes. And back to this idea that they're still not scoring a lot. They're not shooting it well. But if they're not giving up points, it's not mattering.
Yeah.
And they're rebounding. So Seme's back. He's averaging almost 11 rebounds a game in conference play. I know that they're 11-10 and 5-5, but I'm going to tell you that nobody in this league wants to see this team in Pensacola.
No.
And I'm thinking that if Georgia Southern can continue to trend with its defense and find a way to score just a little bit, they're going to be in that same category. But somebody's got to find a way to stop Georgia State, and the Eagles have 2 chances this weekend.
They seem to be the poster child for what a lot of coaches across the country talk about. You want to be playing your best basketball at the end of February, beginning of March.
And I do like the fact that the Sun Belt had enough sense scheduling-wise to give Georgia Southern the Saturday home game, because usually scheduling-wise it mostly goes against the Eagles, because I can think back 5 years ago when conference play opened on New Year's Eve here in the afternoon with no students, and then Georgia Southern was Georgia State's senior night, and it's been more of those than the way that it's currently going. But I like the fact that Thursday it's up on the 3rd floor one final time. We've made our feelings about it pretty clear, and everybody else in the league kind of shares that, but it's always noteworthy when you play Georgia State up there. And then Saturday for the whiteout, getting a chance to hopefully sweep the weekend. It's going to be the best crowd inside Hanner Fieldhouse in more than 2 years. It's going to be the best crowd that a lot of these guys here will have seen.
Yeah.
Because COVID year last year, you're capping it at about 1,000. This year, the best crowd has been just under 3. It's going to be packed out on Saturday. There is an emotion in that building when it's Georgia State like none other you can describe. You just have to be there. We know the students are going to be lined up back close to Russell Union. And I'm excited to see what Coach Berg and that team's reaction is to seeing people basically stacked up to the rafters when Georgia State's on the other bench.
Georgia Southern, Georgia State up in Atlanta on Thursday, 7 o'clock to tip off, 3 o'clock tip off on Saturday.
Let's see if I can take the sign with me.
Which one?
You know which one.
Oh.
No, I'm not going to be able to do that.
Why not?
No, I don't think they'll like that very much. Hey, guys, I know you're tearing it down, right? I'm just trying.
Yeah.
You don't have to move it because the new one's not going to be on the 3rd floor. But
have they confirmed that?
I would anticipate that their new convocation center is not on the 3rd floor.
Please don't be. Please don't be.
Look, it would line up if they want to be for consistency's sake, but I would bet that it's a sunk into the ground kind of deal.
I would bet they don't want to do that. One more team to get to. I'm going to leave that alone. One more team to get to is Georgia Southern Baseball opens up the 2022 campaign, 23rd year for head coach Rodney Hennon leading the blue and white. They start against the Tennessee Volunteers, a team that went to Omaha last year, are as high as some would say 16 in the country, but flirting around that 16 to 20 range.
Which is about right considering what they lost.
Right. Lost a lot off of that team. You and I were talking about it before we went on tonight. A lot of the guys that I enjoyed watching for Tennessee last year are not there anymore. You look at Max Ferguson on the infield. Connor Pavoloni behind the plate was fantastic. Those two are gone. You lose a lot of pitchers off of that squad as well. Chad Dallas, the Friday night starter, was a fantastic guy that we got to watch in Statesboro. Sean Hundley as well. But being able to go up against a Tennessee team, and I don't know that I'd be stretching too far to say this one's been circled for a little while for this Georgia Southern team after Tennessee came in and swept Georgia Southern last year at J.I. Clement Stadium, and you could argue that Georgia Southern should have taken 2 out of 3 from the Volunteers a year ago. And there's a lot of guys on this team. We were talking with head coach Rodney Hennon earlier on today in our preseason meetings.
Well, yes, we got our preseason fix. We're good now.
Got our 4-hour conference up there. We're good. But there's a lot of guys for this Georgia Southern team, a Christian Avant, an Austin Thompson, even a Blake Evans to an extent, J.P. Tighe, guys that have seen what Georgia Southern can do and especially saw what they did against Tennessee last year and kind of more importantly what Tennessee did last year. And that just adds a little bit of fuel to the fire to this weekend going up to Knoxville. Tennessee is an extremely talented team. You got 2 preseason All-SEC teams. In Drew Gilbert, he was second team. And Jordan Beck, the preseason All-American by a lot of different publications. Jordan Beck, a lot of times in a lot of series, may be the best player on the field when he gets into SEC play. But you've had a lot of injuries for Tennessee, especially on the pitching staff. It came out a couple of weeks ago that the projected Friday night starter, Blade Tidwell, who was a preseason All-American as well, he is out for the season because of injury with his arm. And a rotation hasn't been released yet by Tennessee. Normally on Mondays is when you swap rotations. A rotation hasn't been set yet because of different injuries throughout the Tennessee program. So you're trying to figure out who are you going against on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday up in Knoxville. Projected, and all throughout the fall, Tony Vitello kept saying that there's really 5 different guys that could get a start on the weekend. One of those was Tidwell, so really you're down to 4 now. But a familiar name to Eagle Nation could be a Friday, Saturday, maybe a Sunday. I would think he's Friday or Saturday, in Chase Dolander.
They're back into a corner because one of the other 4, and Seth Halverson, the Missouri transfer, who's billed as being a power-armed guy just like Tidwell is, but he broke his forearm back in January, so he's going to be shut down for a little bit. So theory, you could say that those 3 for those 3 spots, but there's not a whole lot of buzz coming out of Knoxville regarding what they're going to do yet. But for Dolander, somebody that we saw as a freshman last year, he was up to 97, 98 with that fastball. The word is that he's been much more in the 92-94 range in the fall, working with revered pitching coach Frank Anderson. He's tightened up his slider, trying to work with that changeup. I would put pretty good money on the fact that Dolander is going to be starting one of those games. Yeah. I just don't know which game. You've also got a veteran in Camden Sewell who would be an option, and then Burns, who's a 100-mile-an-hour freshman who could have gone in the draft last year, got ignored because his bonus needs were not met. But great for Tony Vitello because he gets a chance to add another fireballer to what was a pretty deep pitching staff last year, but it is a weekend rotation that has to get remade. Offensively, though, they homer or they strike out. That's their game. They take their donkey hacks, and a lot of times it works out for them, even though the Eagles struck them out 45 times in those 3 games to open last season. But Beck went deep 15. Evan Russell is someone that's making the move behind the plate to replace Pavoloni. He had 14 home runs. This is a team that's definitely going to be offensively strong. Defensively, we'll see what they do double play-wise because you lose Ferguson, you lose a really good shortstop in Liam Spence. Yeah. But Luke Lipsius is back to play first. Guys will be in different spots, but they have more than enough punch to at least get back to the NCAA regionals, you would think.
And like you talked about, you've got a lot of the same names. You're just going to see them in different places between Jordan Beck still going to be patrolling the outfield, Luke Lipsius, Evan Russell makes the move behind the plate, Logan Steenstra as well along the infield. So it'll be interesting to see what this lineup looks like from Tony Vitello, and then you've got Drew Gilbert thrown in there too.
He has a flair for the dramatic. We saw that in Game 2 in Statesboro last year. We also saw it in the regionals when he had his walk-off grand slam against Wright State. So he's undoubtedly a talented guy and somebody that could step in and pitch in a pinch if they needed to. I don't think that's someone they're going to rely on out of their bullpen with somebody like Redmond Walsh on the back end, who we saw last year in Statesboro, a really good left-hander. Kirby Cannell was more of a control guy but can throw 3 pitches for strikes, and I would anticipate that he's going to be part of that 3-game series in Knoxville.
But for Georgia Southern baseball, they had 3 different guys, preseason all-conference, Jason Swann, Christian Avant, and Noah Ledford, really well-deserving. A couple of guys that you could have argued as well, Parker Beatier, and you're going to have a lot of the same faces on the offensive side. You're still going to see Swann at first, most likely, Austin Thompson at short. You're going to see Blake Evans, Jarrett Brown over at third, Tig behind the plate, Parker Beatier in center, Avant and right. But you've got a couple of new names as well coming in. Will Patota coming in, the transfer from Bama, has a potential to be in the starting lineup for Georgia Southern this year. So a couple of new faces, a couple of new pieces, but really the changes are going to be on the pitching staff side. I'm going to see a new Friday night start, really a new weekend rotation for Georgia Southern, and obviously you have to replace Bones. But Rodney brought up a really good point this morning that when we were having these meetings last year, we were saying, we might do this closing thing by committee. We'll figure out who takes the bull by the horns, and it just happened to be that Bones did it.
And he led the country with 17 saves, so
right.
Ties a school record. It's just that was found money.
Oh, yeah.
When he's responsible for roughly 2/3 of Georgia Southern's wins last year by closing them out. But there are some gaps with him gone, with the weekend rotation. Oh, by the way, the Sun Belt Player of the Year, Mason McWhorter, has finished. Maybe the most consistent player, Stephen Curry, finishes his 5-year career. It is strange not seeing him at second and Mason in left anymore, but we will move on because we just have to move on. But the guy that Georgia Southern fans will see quickly at second base is the Kennesaw State transfer Jesse Sherrill. Played with Savannah Bananas last summer, part of a CPL championship. Fast, handles the bat really well, good bunter. He is going to set the table for the Eagles more often than not. And you bring up the guys that were preseason all-league. Christian Avant should have been all-conference after last season. He finished second in the league in hitting behind only McWhorter. So I think he takes that as being slighted. So I would think that Christian may be even better in his 5th year. And then with Led, he's been 2 times all-conference. He already has 2 double-digit home run seasons. He went deep 14 times last year. And then with Jason Swann, who's been pretty consistent. He has hit in just about every spot in the batting order. Remember, it was 2018. He was the leadoff guy as a freshman. He's also hit 30. He's really hit everywhere, but something he has done has been the steady influence at first base.
Yeah.
He might even play a little bit of left field this year, depending on how the lineup gets configured. But so many 3rd, 4th, and 5th-year guys. It's definitely one of the oldest teams that Coach Hennon has had, period, not just in Statesboro. And pitching-wise, if you get just a little bit out of not just the new blood, guys like Ty Fisher, Thomas Higgins, Thomas Ross, but also with Ben Johnson and Jalen Payton maybe moving into the weekend. You've got Braden Hayes, who can start, can also do long relief. He was really good in that role last year. And somebody like a grad transfer in Danny Madden, who could go to the weekend. Left-handed pitcher from Towson, who struck out 7 here last year in that series in the final game, could also be a midweek guy.
Yeah.
So it's all about role identification, role recognition, and then just do the best that you can with whatever role that you're given.
Georgia Southern will have 3 up in Knoxville this weekend. It starts on Friday night, 4:30, the first pitch against number 16 to 19 Tennessee. Then a 1 o'clock first pitch on Saturday. That one getting changed a little bit earlier on today. It was a 3 o'clock, but because of weather, supposedly on Saturday afternoon, it's moving up to a 1 p.m. first pitch on Saturday. And then Sunday, 1 p.m. first pitch as well from Lindsey Nelson Stadium before. Next week is when the home opener happens against number 21 Georgia Tech on Tuesday. But we will dive into the Jackets a little bit more next week's edition of Inside Eagle Nation.
Speaking of Jackets, that's a really nice segue. All right, with Lindsey Nelson, do you know what he was known for? Besides being a fabulous announcer and basically starting the radio network in Tennessee, do you know what he was known for?
Didn't he have the No, that's not the answer.
He was close, though.
Didn't he have like a plaid or...
Yeah.
Was it plaid jacket? Checkerboard jacket?
He was known for very stylish jackets, and that was the inspiration for Jim Brockmeyer's character.
Oh, fantastic.
So you can spoil...
So they're really going to like my microphone up there.
Yeah, so you could spoil a few innings this weekend to talk about that.
Oh, fantastic.
But Lindsey Nelson, a broadcasting titan, after he retired from the Mets, he actually moved back to Knoxville. He had a house right on the Tennessee River and stayed there until he passed away.
Fantastic. One more thing we've got to get to this week in Inside Eagle Nation. Had an announcement come out last week from the Georgia Southern Athletic Foundation and the ticket office. The We Need You campaign, the ticket modernization process for Georgia Southern Athletics. And before we dive into what exactly this entails, one of the things that I absolutely love about this, the campaign is We Need You, because we talked about it with Director of Athletics Jared Benko a couple of weeks ago, the fact that Georgia Southern was toward the bottom of the Sun Belt Conference as far as budget's concerned, and needing to move up in that process. So the We Need You makes sense. But the other part of this that I think might get overlooked a little bit is the We Hear You process. And it's not just, hey, we need you to do this. It's Georgia Southern listening to what the fans are saying they want. You're going to have a lot more premium seating inside Paulson Stadium this year, and there's a lot of things that have been concerns or have been requests from fans in Eagle Nation that are being taken to heart, and now you see the process changing.
The reaction so far seems to be really positive, and in a way it has to be positive, because if it's not, then Georgia Southern's going to have a difficult time of getting to where they feel they need to be, and this just isn't with football. A lot of this is geared towards football, but this is going to improve the entire profile of the athletic department. And if you dug a little bit deeper in regards to the campaign, Paulson's going to undergo some renovations, and of course with the indoor practice facility breaking ground on April the 23rd, the day of the spring game, you're also going to see some of the premium sections get new seating on both sides of the stadium. The Field of Dreams is going to turn into a premium area. You're going to have more of the cabanas, the Bud Light cabanas that we saw debut in 2021. And we know this is all working towards getting Georgia Southern to that upper echelon of Group of Five, not just in the Sun Belt, but in the Group of Five, because that is the goal that Jared set out, and you have the alignment from the top down. Very rarely do you get that kind of detailed alignment from the top with President Dr. Kyle Marrero all the way through the athletic department, that everybody is seeing things through the same set of eyes and being on board with taking care of what needs to be taken care of. And I think that this is such a great thing for Georgia Southern athletics, and I'm excited to see what it actually looks like with a lot of construction that's going to be taking place over the next roughly year or so. But it's not going to be a new Paulson Stadium, but it is going to be a shinier Paulson Stadium. Get a chance to show off some new toys. There were some things that were added last year with the yellow school bus near the Optum Zone. Just being able to increase the experience as much as possible to put Georgia Southern in the best financial situation possible.
To find out more information, you can go to gseagles.com. There's a link right there for the We Need You campaign and all the information that you would ever need. A lot of FAQs, so any questions you might have, Eric Reisner and his entire staff, David Cutler had a big part in this. Trevor Walker over in the ticket office had a huge part in this. Chris Davis as well. There's not a whole lot that they haven't thought about.
And there are so many different options. Ticketing-wise. There is the per-seat donation model that is now being put in place, because before you could get up to 4, where that wouldn't kick in until 5 or more. But they're moving to per-seat for all. But there are still a number of sections that, if you don't feel that that's financially viable for you, then you can just do season tickets and not have to worry about donating to the Eric Russell Foundation. I mean, we would love if you did. We would absolutely love it. But at the same time, you've got to have the kind of experience that you can afford. Everybody can do a little bit, and it's all going to take us working together to get us where we want to be.
I would encourage you to go on gseagles.com and just kind of go through the We Need You campaign and see what it's all about. I know whenever it's talked about of prices going up, that it starts to turn people off pretty quickly. But dive into this, really see what this is about. This isn't a knee-jerk reaction by any stretch of the imagination. There's been a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of thought, not just of what Georgia Southern needs, but how it affects the fans, how it affects the ticket holders, how it affects everybody, has really been taken into consideration with all of this. And I think once you dive into it and read it, it'll be pretty apparent of that.
It's a chance for all of us to invest in the future that we want to see.
Yep.
I'll put it that way.
No doubt about it. But again, a busy week for Georgia Southern Athletics, and it's been a fun Inside Eagle Nation. I think we've cram-packed everything we could into 50 minutes.
I just thought of one more thing.
Okay, well, you got 10 more.
This coming weekend for Georgia Southern men's basketball against Georgia State, it is alumni weekend, so we hope to see a lot of former players. Get in touch with Miss Helen regarding how you can be involved with the Round Ball Club.
She was on the front of a magazine.
On the front of this quarter's Georgia Southern magazine, she and a number of former Georgia Teachers College attendees and graduates had a chance to share their memories of what it was like here back in the 1950s. It's really good stuff at her perspective and several others. I encourage Eagle Nation to go find this quarter's edition of Georgia Southern magazine.
Yeah, you popped it in the door and was like, "Hey, have you seen this?" I was like, Miss Helen.
Daryl Lynn showed me the picture of it because I didn't realize that she was going to be on the cover. I knew that she was doing interviews for it. I knew that she was one of several, but to get on the cover,
I mean, there's nobody else. When you have a jacket like hers.
I know. Trusted friend and contributor to this podcast.
No doubt. We're going to have to go back over there to get some stories.
Mm-hmm. Because there are a lot of stories.
No doubt.
There's a ton of stories.
No doubt.
But make sure you take a look at the story. And this weekend, of course, with Georgia State, it's a whiteout. It should be a sellout crowd, but also seeing so many alumni coming back that help make this program what it is now. That's going to be a special weekend.
You got Georgia Southern softball with the GATA Challenge coming up this weekend over at Eagle Field. Baseball up at Tennessee Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to take on the Volunteers to open up the campaign.
Take an extra coat, by the way.
I'm going to take a lot of them.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
You know me, I don't do cold. Do not do it. Nope. Men's and women's basketball in action as well. Women hit the road to the Alabama swing. Men's basketball at home on Saturday, on the road on Thursday against the Georgia State Panthers.
One more time inside the third floor.
Allegedly.
One more.
Until this weekend, for the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed, this is Colin Lacy saying so long, everybody.
You've been listening to Inside Eagle Nation, powered by Learfield, the official podcast of Georgia Southern Athletics.